going live, and boom, according to that I am live. Welcome, this is Tokyo Tonight. It's 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time, Sunday evening. Good to see you all. This is a loud Japanesey shirt that I'm wearing. It's actually the giveaway shirt from the first only ever half marathon that I've ran. I ran it in Seattle at University of Washington. I ran it for the Cherry Blossom Half Marathon, and they give this out to all of the runners. It's a participation t-shirt, but since it's for my first half marathon, I'm wearing it. And yeah, it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of, the only thing is that, while this looks extremely Japanese, I can assure you nobody in Tokyo I've ever seen would wear anything this loud. Maybe in Osaka, but definitely not in Tokyo. But I like it. I'm wearing it. So yeah. Good to see who we got in here. We've got Shubis already here. No, never fear, Shubis. Our man from Panama is here. Great to see you. 8:30 a.m. in Panama. Glad that you can make it. We've got Quint Ranked and 6 concurrent viewers, 2 likes. Remember to like if you like. Remember, I'm not putting ads on this. I'm not monetizing this. Literally, peanuts and likes is all that I'm doing this for. It's been an interesting week in terms of how Tokyo's been. It's been, I mean, I say that every year is like this. Every year is incredibly hot. This year it's been above 35 degrees every day, which is like high 90s every day. And overnight, it doesn't go down below 20. So to be defined as a tropical night is a night when it doesn't go below 25. And that used to be once or twice a year. And a extreme heat day of above 35 used to be once or twice a year, like as recently as the 1970s and early 1980s in Tokyo. Now we just have had the whole last month basically be every day is like that. It's just become normal. This is one of the things I got into a discussion on. I still call it Twitter. I call it X. I feel dirty calling it that. It makes it sound like a far more interesting website than it is. I was having, so whenever you talk about, even like tangentially about like global warming, you start to get like weird comments. I pointed out global warming is a thing that's happening. Of course, there are, and global temperatures set to go up by like 1.5 degrees over the next 50 years, which is like a lot. But Tokyo's gone up like more than 5 degrees over the last 30 years. And that would have happened even if global warming wasn't happening, simply because of the heat island effect of Tokyo, all the concrete and all the heat pumps and so on that people use for air conditioning, and the lack of trees and everything. It just results in, this sort of bubble of heat over Tokyo, particularly in summer. And this is why I tell everybody, don't come here. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of laughing that I spent winter in Seattle and summer in Tokyo. Somehow, I think I got that wrong. There was quite a nice period at the end of my stay in Seattle, but weather-wise. But yeah, it's been miserable. I mean, it's miserable every year. It's always miserable, and Tokyo is not the worst. The fact that they've just started the high school baseball tournament in Osaka, like where kids play baseball all day in the middle of the day, and their schoolmates are forced to sit in the stands in the sun watching them. It seems borderline abusive, honestly. And this is another thing. When I was playing sports, when I was coaching like kids rugby and stuff, I was starting to think that games should be cancelled and training should be cancelled if it's above 35 degrees. It's dangerous, actually. And every year you hear X number of stories of kids who their coaches won't let them drink water during training, and they die. Lots of kids die during summer training, which is like when they emphasize. Even rugby, even baseball plays during this time of year. It is miserable. I think we're at the peak worst of it at the moment. There's already a typhoon over Okinawa at the moment, which went over Okinawa and then it stopped and it went back. It's sort of it's kind of like if it was a car running over a person, it would be murderous, because they've kind of doubled back and done it again. Right now, the ocean temperatures, of course, highest ever recorded ocean temperatures around Florida. Fortunately, it's okay in Florida because they don't believe in climate change. But around here, we also have high temperatures over the sea, which normally means that if we get typhoons, they become super powerful. They don't lose their energy. So we'll see what happens. There aren't many hurricanes happening in America, but there are. We've got our first typhoon reaching Japan at the moment. And we'll see if it results in more. The upside, I suppose, is that it'll cool things down. But yeah, it's pretty miserable. The weather really doesn't get good here until about September. So we'll see how that all goes. Nice to see some more people rocking into the comments. We've got, who have we got in here? Let's go back in order. We've got Chris Jack. Good to see you, Chris Jack. I also see that we have Black Tengu. Great to see you. G'day indeed. Our man in Greece. We've got Kerberos Tenshi. Edo. Good to see you, Edo. Global warming passed us by. We are the rainiest July ever measured. Well, this is also why they're calling it climate change. I mean, if they're talking about the, what do they call it? The transatlantic circulation thing. If that collapses due to all the ice melting, that'll actually cause like an ice age in Europe, and so it changes weather. It's climate change, but places are feeling it as more extreme swings in weather as well, and we still might get crazy rain as well, but we've not had it here. Whereabouts are you? Edo, well, the rainiest July ever measured. Curious where that is. Is that the UK? No, the rainiest UK ever in UK would be extreme. Although I've heard that it's been like that in UK. But anyway, Sachifa, good to see you. LK99. It's weird that you actually applied. It's actually applied to work at a lab. It's weird that I accidentally applied to work at a lab that might work on it. Small world. Well, I think I'm almost glad, as someone who thinks that the AI hype is a little bit overdone. I'm kind of glad almost that LK99 has come along. Just to sort of, it seems to be the next big hype thing, although I think this one will peter out faster. But yeah, definitely I have thoughts about that. Going down, we've got global cooling would have been preferred. Believe me, if it had been global cooling, we'd all be wishing it was global warming. We'll see. But as I say on this channel, yeah, when it's freezing cold, you can still do things about it. You can, heat things up. You can wear extra clothes. When it's hot, you can't get any more naked than naked. So yeah, cooling arguably is preferable, though then of course you've got problems with food supply and all sorts of other things. So yes, indeed, we've got Aaron. Good to see you. Don't forget to say hi. Indeed, remember to throw peanuts and smash the like button, which I see 7 of you have done, but there are 16 people in here, so please come in and do that good stuff. Great to see you, Aaron. We've got Wingstar. Good to see you, Wingstar. Nice to have you here in the chat. And Tokyo503, great to see you. If you want to leave me a comment or a question or ask me for a topic or something, do what Kerberos Tenshi did. You don't have to do paid super chats in here. Kerberos Tenshi just says my name. It flashes up orange on the screen, which means I'll pay extra attention on it. And Kerberos Tenshi, part of the global warming this year is an effect of the pollutant ship fuel because the ships cause less cloud seeding. SciShow did a video about that recently. I mean, I've heard all sorts of things. Again, when I posted that Tokyo has a urban heat island effect, somebody said, "Oh no, all the heating this year is due to El Nino," and another person said it's due to Hunga Tonga, the volcano that erupted in Tonga. It's probably all the things, but still, the graphs show statistically that this is not an anomalous year. This is part of a pretty straight line trend of gradual increase, with little perturbations. But certainly there are other things happening. That's it. SciShow sounds interesting. It might be worth a look. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. Last week I was surprised. The thing is, because of course, Elon doesn't want Flipboard or anyone else making Twitter more convenient to use, and I'm just going to call it Twitter. As a result of that, wow, Kerberos Tenshi saying the south of Germany saw 30 centimeters of hail on Friday. I think I saw something about that in the news. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. As a result, I'm flipping through every tweet that I've done this week, and it turns out I do a lot of tweets. I only got through like 2 days worth of tweets last week. I'm going to probably try to rocket through the tweets one by one, go through my Twitter feed this week, and we'll see. Oh yeah, today it's been too hot to go outside. I've been only running pretty much at night when I run, and the weekends are pretty boring as a rule, and summer holidays, so it's really hard to book anything unless you've planned it in advance, and you have to pay 5 or 6 times the price. So it's really just staying inside at the moment, and staying inside. I've pretty much just been doing work, which interestingly enough, of course I don't talk about current job. I talk about previous jobs, but I have shared that I work in IT. In legal. But part of what I do is because I used to be a system engineer, is I teach other lawyers how to use tech, including tech that we sort of use, and of course AI. Everyone's doing AI nowadays. So I've actually got some trainings where I've been actually provisioning and training large language models for LLM. Again, very very basically, just doing demos of how it's done. But I've actually done it, and it's kind of cool. You can actually create your own custom FAQ based LLMs. I could create an LLM. In fact, I could just feed it, like if I could figure out some way, it'd be a bit like Silicon Valley. I could just attach it to, it'd be kind of cool if I could get all the captions to all of my YouTube videos ever, and create a Hiko chatbot or something, or maybe from my emails or something like that. And yeah, I guess that's, I can see now that's kind of possible to do, although I've kind of got it hooked up to a kind of stupid model, not up to one of the fancy ones. And the CPU is like insanely expensive, like per hour it costs a few dollars. So you set it up and you take it all down right away. But yeah, I've been doing that. I've been playing around with setting them up and taking them down and making documentation. And one day, when it's not my actual current job, I might even share that knowledge on this channel if people are interested. But yeah, it's cool stuff. I mean, hell, maybe I should stop the Gen AI and start learning applied material science. If this LK99 happens, we could all be baking superconductors at home, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. Congratulations to Sweden beating the USA. Just talking about how the whole world really, I mean, FIFA, if anything, FIFA should be sponsoring the American NFL, because that's what stops America dominating. Thank heavens, because America pretty much dominates anything it looks at, which you can see with women's soccer. I call it soccer because that's what it's called. Well, New Zealand's kind of transitioning, but it's what it's called in Japan, and it's what it's called in America. And yeah, in the same way that women's soccer, US women's soccer have dominated. So, really big thing actually for Sweden to knock them over. It will be very interesting to see Sweden play Japan in the quarterfinals next week. So congrats to both teams. Of course, Japan going through against Norway. But yeah, thank heavens America plays American. It's like the imperial measurement system. It's so good for the rest of the world that America doesn't play our sports, because otherwise we'd never compete. We need America to play by state. So that's a cool thing. Yeah, just going through the news today, there's a Nikkei story that under 4% of Japan's top firms who have made commitments to having boardroom representation of women are on track to meet those goals, which is kind of why Japan is at 126, I think, in the global gender equality ranking. Saudi Arabia and falling, while Saudi Arabia is improving and is up to 133. They're 7 places apart, and by trends, we're like 4 years away from Saudi Arabia having better gender equality than Japan. In fact, on the specific metric of women in the boardroom, wouldn't surprise me actually if Saudi Arabia is possibly already beating Japan on this. So, that's a thing. And of course, don't need to tell me, as again, people on Twitter will point out, yeah, but in Saudi, well, they do let women drive, although again, nothing to brag about there. But they do stone women to death in public for adultery and all sorts of stuff in Saudi Arabia, and yes, they do. But again, by other metrics, Japan is on a par with that sort of a nation, and it's not a good look. And surely Japan should at least care enough about how it looks to do something about that. So, yeah, taking a quick look at the comments there. Thank you for sending me the link on X, Cobra Stenshi. It still feels kind of dirty saying that you're going to send me something on X, but thank you for that. Sergeant Bilko, great to see you, Sergeant Bilko. The chatbot would hone in on butter, 100% confident. Yes, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? If you could build a chatbot based on Tokyo Tonight, and then you ask it questions about butter. Hell, even you're right. That would be the test to see if it works. It's a good call. Wow, more people rocking in here. We've got Ninjaroo88. G'day, mate. Indeed, good to see you. My Argonauts, Jason, great to see you on PKs, indeed, and not only on PKs, but it sounds like I was reading the text of it, but it sounds like the VAR called the final successful PK from Sweden. So yeah, sounds pretty intense actually. I've been looking on YouTube for the highlights, but I can't see it yet. Such asking, have I excreted today? Yeah, exactly. That's a whole different direction to where I was planning to go, but there you go. Kikyang Zhu, that's a name I don't recognize. So nice to have you in the chat, Kikyang. Hope I'm pronouncing it. Is it Kichang? Possibly Kichang. Kichang Zhu. Anyway, any progress in the last day on building LLMs? Yeah. I was actually able to do it right away. What I've been doing over the last day is just documenting everything and recording training videos. It's pretty fun. So if that's what you're talking about, I have made progress on that. Japan has not made progress in the last day on women's equality, unfortunately, but I've made progress on my work, so that's a good thing. Coming down, yeah, there's a thing where Shiga City, it's kind of interesting. we've this year been having the first fireworks displays, public fireworks, really since COVID, since 2019. And, these are a big deal in Japan. I think I've talked about how Japan, these have been going on for hundreds of years because, of course, this part of the world had gunpowder before Europe did. And, the artisans who make these fireworks, they've been putting on these fireworks shows for hundreds of years. And the artisans that make the fireworks are really good at making the colorful and special design and ones that look like Hello Kitty and all this sort of stuff. And so, apart from the fact that there's kind of the crowds have frankly been kind of scary because, everybody's been going, I have not gone out to see any of the fireworks. Yeah, the crowds that have been going out, it looks kind of crazy and it kind of reinforces my idea that I don't want to go out to do it. However, in Shiga City, they've decided there that, with the cost of hosting them and so on, Shiga, beside, in fact, I think it's Otsu City, Shiga Prefecture. In fact, now I find myself questioning myself. Is it Shiga City or is it Shiga Prefecture? Yeah, Hanabi Taikai, Jikomi. Well, anyway, I hate that. I'm questioning myself in the middle of saying it. But in Shiga, they're doing this big fireworks thing, and they've created this big VIP area, which will have supposedly the best view of the fireworks. And to make sure that people who are not paying the apparently very, very expensive tickets, like worth hundreds of dollars to sit in the VIP area with the best view of the fireworks, they're erecting a 4-meter fence with like blinders all over it to prevent city folk from being able to see the fireworks from the VIP view, which is kind of pointing out like what's the point in even having fireworks if you then have to build a 4-meter high fence to prevent members of the public who are not paying from seeing it. If that's the case, I mean, why not just do the fireworks in Antarctica and record a video and charge pay-per-view for it, or just fire the fireworks really low? Maybe fire them at the VIP so that people behind the fence not only can't see, but probably wouldn't want to go because they wouldn't want to catch on fire. I don't know. I see solutions better than, I think they're charging for the wrong thing if they're having a fireworks festival and they're trying to prevent people from being able to see it. It literally is Frank Drebin from Naked Gun, where there's that scene where somebody goes into a fireworks factory riding a missile and the whole fireworks factory explodes, and Frank Drebin's standing in front of the fireworks factory saying, "Move along, nothing to see here." As there's fireworks going off everywhere. It's exactly that kind of a situation. Shigo, what are you doing? I don't understand it. Wow, Tikyo Sam, what do I have to say about the rumors circulating online about me being the most handsome man in all of Japan that can talk about the news? Will neither confirm nor deny, but I confirm. Thank you. Kerberos Tenshi, a 4-meter high fence will definitely block the view of 700 meters of fireworks. Yeah, you can see the flaw in the plan. I mean, they're going to need a higher fence. That fence is going to have to be at least 500 meters high, I think. Who knows? Ben Toro there. It's not like a drive-in theater. You can't block the sky. Well, that's the flaw in the plan, but I don't know whether they'll catch on to it. So there we go. Continuing to scroll down. There's been a lot of talk. I guess now might be the time to talk about LK99. LK99, it's been all over Twitter. It's been all over a lot of YouTube channels that I quite like. So I've been following it. I mean, it's kind of bonkers if it's true, but to start off, it doesn't look like it's true right now. Even if it does, it's not quite as cool as it ideally would be if it was like in a metal form. But what is it? For those of you who have been seeing it and are wondering what it's all about, I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard about this by now, but the very basic summary, as I understand it, is that for a long time there's been this whole thing about trying to figure out how to make superconductors that can be used in normal conditions, and normal temperatures, and normal air pressure. Normally, for superconductors to what is a superconductor? A superconductor, as I understand, is a material that is able to conduct electricity with zero resistance. Typically, when we want to transmit electricity through, through power lines, that's through copper wires, which are incredibly resistive and get hot and they waste like most of the electricity that goes through them. Same with internal components of electronics and so on; they waste electricity. Basically, they have like permanent. Basically, for all intents and purposes, these things have no resistance, so they don't lose any electricity that they transmit or pass through. And they also have like permanent magnets around them, which for things where you need magnets to contain or for tools to work, like MRIs or plasma, fusion reactors and stuff like that. It basically would super reactors are needed for those things. And the biggest challenge right now of creating fusion reactors or buying MRIs is the need to keep the superconductors that contain the magnetic fields in those machines down to minus absolute zero, like minus 270, 280 degrees Celsius. And so the idea, if you could do that, if you could create material which you could convert into power lines, it means that you would be able to meet current electricity supply with like a third of the electricity. You'd be able to have batteries that never run out. You'd be able to have, electric cars that you charge once and they'll run for like, years. So it's kind of the holy grail. It's kind of, people have been researching this for a long time, and basically it's a form of sort of alchemy with people trying to figure out how to achieve, people have been able to achieve superconductors both under high pressure or under extremely cold conditions, but they've never achieved it at regular air pressure or in room temperature type conditions. And this among them, and plus in 2020 there have been a few false scares on this. It's very much like cold fusion. It reminds me when I was a kid in the late 1980s. Some scientists said that they had been able to create cold fusion. They've been able to have a fusion happen like in a lab just chemically. And the whole world thought, wow, we're going to have unlimited, free, clean electricity forever, and it's going to be easy, and it'll be like Back to the Future with Mr. Fusion. And no, that turned out to be false. And this kind of is as big, if true, and also feels kind of as possibly dodgy. There was a huge false claim about room temperature, regular air pressure superconductors that happened in about 2019. That was a big scandal. However, this particular lab in Korea has been trying to achieve this since 1999. And they published, not into Nature or a big journal, they published it onto Archive, which is actually where a lot of AI papers get published. They publish their findings that, if you basically go and get some lead oxide and some phosphorus and some stuff you can basically get very cheaply anywhere pretty much, and more or less, with stuff that you can bake at home. It takes about 4 days to bake up. They put the recipe online. They said that you create a ceramic material, a mineral material that shows superconductivity. And, they showed videos of a kind of like not fully levitating, just at a half levitating, which itself, to be a proper superconductor, it would need to be fully levitating. And the Meissner effect, I think it's called. So the video that they posted looked like it's a form of a diamorphic magnetism. It's a type of magnetism that's good, but it's not like full superconductor. But they put the recipe online. They said it's super easy. You guys try it. Everybody tried it. Everybody failed at it except for a couple of labs in China, which tried it with sort of mixed results as well. So right now the whole world's trying to figure out, they've published how they did it. So everyone's trying to replicate it. And that's where these things always fall down. If it works, it doesn't mean we're going to have power lines made out of the stuff because it's not a metal. It's going to be harder to use than if they're finding this in a metal. However, it still would mean, if you could get cheap, homemade superconductors, it suddenly means that, these massive, expensive MRI machines, fusion power, transport batteries, it still has the potential to really revolutionize society. You talk about the way that we could achieve, based on current technology, a society with unlimited electricity and power and medical tools, and this would be the way to do it. So it's still got massive implications, and it's very, very, very exciting, particularly the fact that it's not even made out of very exotic materials, like abundant materials, in a way that could be done almost at anyone's home. It's practically like baking meth, except they're superconductors. So, if true, it's amazing. And I've seen stories that sort of explain how it might be true. But it seems to be a fluke that this particular combination of chemicals, mixed and baked in a particular way causes a crystal effect, which, results in superconductivity is the argument. But it does look very much like magic, and it hasn't been fully replicated. But there again, it's only been out for a week. So, people are still looking into replicating this, and apparently the recipe instructions were not very good. Some people are calling BS on this. Quite a few people are. It's one of those things that's too good to be true. But there again, the recipe and everything is out there. The materials are easy to use, so it should be easy to prove or disprove fairly quickly, I'd hope. So exactly. Shubis, no replications, no sale. So that's what we're waiting for. But there are people apparently this week. The most watched stream on Switch was somebody going through the 4-day baking process of making these. I don't think it resulted in a success. I don't know, but again, it'd be awesome if it's true. So I'm rooting for them. But and LK99, it could finally at least take the hype cycle attention off of NFTs and Bitcoin and Gen AI. But we'll see. We'll see. It is super exciting if it's true, and I am following it every day. I'm actually doing a search of what's the latest on this, but I'm not seeing more replications. The two Chinese labs sort of got mixed results, but yeah, so that's a thing. Superconductors are the new meth. Yeah, go out into the bush and bake some up. I mean, that's how it looks. If this is true, which and I must say, if it's not true, South Korea's, Japan's had a bumpy road with scientific claims. We had the woman who published that she had discovered pluripotent stem cells. She had found a way to create stem cells to be able to harvest sort of any type of human cell easily, and it turned out she faked that research, and had to retract all of her papers, and she was sort of held up as this big successful woman Japanese scientist. And same with the Korean cloning thing. That was a huge scandal, and the way that institutions went along with it. The good news about this one is that if it's true, or either way, it's easy to prove or disprove. But if it's fake, it's probably not going to reflect well on. And it's a big problem as well for Korean and Japanese scientists that the language barrier is one of the factors that makes it hard to get peer review on these sorts of things, or at least they're less good at getting it. So. This could be something that they have to go in and find out some more about that. So anyway, I do recommend for a sort of a level-headed look at this. There's actually some really good takes on the implications of this and what superconductors are and why this is a big deal. But in terms of how the actual science is going, Anton Petrov, he's a Canadian YouTuber who does daily. He covers science papers, mainly about space. Every day, but he covered this, and he lives in Korea as well. And he's a really cool guy, and he's covered it pretty well. And he's quite skeptical, which is good for this sort of thing. So I highly recommend that. Moving on today. Oh, we've got Yoni. Good to see you from Chile, Finland. I'm glad I'll be what I would give to be in Chile, Finland right now. Good to have you in here to catch the live boom. Indeed. Speaking of boom, today is that's bad taste, isn't it? Today is the 78th anniversary of the Hiroshima nuclear attack. I've talked about this every year that I've been doing YouTube, so there isn't much to go over this again. But for those who are coming late to this, my general summary of the Hiroshima thing is, overall, what I always find most awkward about the Hiroshima anniversary is the way that a lot of Americans assume that this is a day that Japan hates America, or they blame America for this terrible thing that they did. And the one thing you hear very little about on this day is America. Japanese do dwell on the suffering that the A-bombs caused and the need to eradicate A-bombs and the importance of peace. And again, you'll hear foreigners say, well, if Japan wasn't waging a war of aggression, we wouldn't have had to bomb them. You don't see them, they're just feeling sorry for themselves. They don't feel sorry for starting World War II. Japan doesn't really. Again, Japan talks about the A bombings more or less like a typhoon or like a natural disaster that happened. So it's kind of blamed. And when you talk about, well, as much as ever, some people feel like, probably self-defensively, like they want Japan to sort of admit guilt and that they're responsible and that they brought this on themselves. And at the end of the day, the approach that Japan has taken of just showing how much war just completely sucks and how you should never do it has probably been the most successful in terms of how many countries the size of Japan have avoided any military conflicts for 80 years now. What more do you want? Basically, right? Japan's been peaceful and successful, and it's been that way through remembering how terrible these things were, and they don't. And of this whole post-war period, they've been best friends with America. So there's nothing for America to feel particularly defensive about with this. Now, separately, I hear no debate in Japan, or practically zero debate, other than the really far left and the anti-US bases and anti-Americans in general, which is such a small part of the population, it's almost irrelevant. And even the anti-American right wing, like they don't care at all because they want A-bombs as well. um, in terms of was it necessary? Obviously, it wasn't. Obviously, I mean, Japan was on the ropes anyway. The idea that it's actually arguable that they didn't move the needle on Japan's decision to surrender when you consider that Tokyo had been just as devastated as Nagasaki and Hiroshima by repeated firebombings. When you consider, how Japan was laid waste, some would argue that it was actually Russia declaring war on Japan and rushing into Japanese territories and looking like it was going to occupy the top of Japan. That arguably moved the needle. In fact, when you look at the notes on internally why Japan surrendered, the Soviet Union entering World War II and attacking Japan seems to have had more of an influence on the decision to surrender than the A-bombs. The military didn't care, and when the emperor wanted to surrender, of course, the military, tried to launch a coup to prevent it. So apart from the fact it was a massive, needless loss of civilian life, again, people thinking that Japan surrendered because they were overwhelmed by the A-bombs, I don't think that's true either. And if you wanted to demonstrate the A-bombs, they could have just dropped one in Tokyo Bay to show how big it is and said, next time we'll drop it on a city. They didn't have to drop it on a city full of civilians. But in any case, these things are debated more outside of Japan than inside of Japan. What's really interesting about this is just the way that it's come up in my feed. For some reason, I've seen Katanga, which is a province in the south of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Basically the country that's just been a complete basket case since President Mobutu passed away. Formerly Zaire became Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's been kind of a big mess. Honestly, since the Belgians showed up in Africa, it's been a complete mess. But this province of Katanga is where most of the world's cobalt comes from. It's got massive copper mines. It's also got uranium mines, it's come up. There's a documentary tonight talking about, one aspect of the A-bomb story was how America needed to source a whole bunch of uranium to figure out how to get, the right sort of uranium to create fissile material for the bomb. And they got this from the Katanga province in the south of Democratic Republic of Congo, then originally Belgian Congo. And they shipped that to the USA. It was a Belgian, as if the Belgians weren't doing enough bad things in Africa. They were also supplying the materials to create the first A-bombs that were used on people. This province of Katanga, of course, in the 60s, there's a movie about, there's actually a movie that's out about the Jadotville siege of the Irish UN soldiers who were, basically there were mercenaries and European companies that owned all the mines in the Katanga province, tried to create like an independent country that was, again, kind of a neo-colonial sort of a country, and the UN went in and tried to prevent that, and it meant that basically Irish UN soldiers were under siege for days from basically South African mercenaries. And then another story came up the other day. Gaijin Mummy shared something that I'd never heard of before, and there's not a lot of links about this, but I'll see if I can find this. Sorry for the dizziness. Where I feel like I've gone past it already. There's a story where so again, the story goes on that in the 1970s, Japan decided itself that it needed to secure materials that were being mined in this Katanga province. And so they created a mining company to go in, and they actually had a whole bunch of copper mines in Katanga province. And they had 3,500 staff there, including doctors and so on. They had a big sort of joint venture sort of operation there. Yeah, I can't find it in my feed at the moment. I'll probably come to it. And they were there for about 15 years before eventually the Canadians took over the mining company, and the Canadians handed over to the Congolese. But apparently, when these Japanese were being sent over to run these mines, they often fraternized with the locals. And when the locals had children, they would be directed to go use the Japanese physician and the nurse from the mine. And according to the locals, dozens of children that were basically, obviously, the children of the Japanese expats and the local Katangese woman, ended up being, they believe, euthanized, killed, infanticide by the doctor and the nurse there. I mean, if true, this is mass murder, by a doctor there, ostensibly because these people didn't want, to have kids to take back to Japan, or they had families back in Japan or whatever. But the doctor was basically, these were not abortions, these were murders of babies. So kind of horrific, and it's something that the Congolese government's never investigated, and the Japanese government's never responded to claims on. But locals there claim that there may have been hundreds of children that were murdered by this Japanese doctor. There's no identification of the doctor, no verification other than a France AFP story of it. But horrific if true. And bearing in mind that the Japanese criminal code, it doesn't limit itself to the territory of Japan. Japanese government claims that if you are Japanese and you commit a crime overseas, they can charge you with it, even if someone else has jurisdiction over it. So if this is true, if there's mass murder there, so I don't know, in a week, for some reason, Katanga province of southern Congo has come up like 3 times. Once in the context of the Katanga infanticide, which you can look up on Wikipedia. Once in terms of that's where the uranium from the A-bomb came from, and once because of this movie. So kind of awful, but just kind of fascinating how this has just come up like multiple times anyway. So that's the thing. I mean, it's a grim day. There's no getting away. Even the side stories about Hiroshima are grim and horrible, but there you go. Jack H, good. Another person from Greece. Good to have you in here. That is excellent. We've got Maddie. Good to see you. Co-pilot of the plane went on U.S. television, expressed regret to one of the victims. Good on Robert Lewis. Of course, I'm sympathetic that the pilots are following the chain of command. And hell, I mean, I actually think that again, while the A-bombs are particularly horrific, they are not. I mean, there were pilots who were dropping incendiaries over Tokyo, deliberately to set it all on fire and burn people alive, which kind of did the same thing. There's a thing about how, air power in war feels kind of sanitary and remote because you don't see the victims and you're not up close and you don't see the blood, but it doesn't make it any more inhumane. In fact, it arguably makes it more inhumane because it's inherently more indiscriminate when you're dropping from a high altitude. And that's something that Japan did, and it's something that all countries did. But it's kind of all these things that we say that, we mustn't have A-bombings anymore. And these concerns that Russia might use tactical nukes in Ukraine or whatever. You can do just as much damage with other forms. My thoughts on this have always been that we should recognize this. A-bombs are terrible, but we shouldn't just limit. So we next time we do war, we're not going to use A-bombs. No, the whole thing kind of sucks. And you look at the numbers in Ukraine; they're already up in the hundreds of thousands. In fact, the casualties, taken from both sides, probably amount to greater loss of life than happened in the A-bombings already in that war. But yet that's okay because it's in little chunks. I mean, so I still think that the lesson is not just you shouldn't A-bomb people. The lesson really is about war, and that's what the Hiroshima Day is about. There's lessons as usual. The actual necessary lessons are not learned, but there we go. We've got the Nagasaki anniversary coming up 2 days from now, and then 5 days after that is the end of war day in Japan, which always has issues there. But there you go. Quick look at the comments. I don't see any. Dan H. Don't forget how crazy the American generals can be. Remember, Douglas MacArthur wanted to nuke China in 1951. That's right. And in fact, and the whole attitude, the idea, even in the course of World War II, the idea that during World War II it was normal to kill civilians, it actually wasn't at the start of the war. There was a transition that happened during the war where it became, sort of sanitized, and propaganda was directed to help to dehumanize and to make it more accessible. The idea of area bombing, of deliberately looking to inflict, to cause surrender, to save American lives and the lives of of countries that are victims of Japanese aggression by inflicting as high a number of civilian casualties as possible. This was a strategy that the Allies basically signed off on. Even during the war, it was of course crazy. You got the bomber Harris thing in Europe over Dresden, and of course you also have I forget the name now, but was it Secretary Stinson or something who signed off on the fire bombings of Tokyo, and Truman who signed off on the A bombs. And as you point out, MacArthur wanted to do the same to China when China was helping North Korea during the Korean Civil War. Yeah, I don't think we've learned at all. It's arguably gotten a little bit better, but not that much better. America's whole strategy during the Cold War as well was, of course, first strike. So, yeah, that is indeed a thing. Let me quickly come back here, just check I haven't missed anything. Quinn Rankid, peace is great, but that depends on what your definition of peace is. That's certainly true. And you take the current major war in Europe, in Ukraine. I'm not for peace, for the sake of just accepting, for the sake of appeasement of a country that's gone and just ridiculously gone and invaded and taken over, stolen territory and so on. Peace has to be, them leaving. And self-defense, is a legitimate use of force. But, at the same time, the whole principle being that when countries have disputes, making war an unacceptable thing to go to. And there's no easy answer to it, of course. Good reminder, Quinn Rankid, actually. Thank you for that. But again, at the same time, Japan has gone through conflicts with Russia, where Russia is occupying 4 Japanese islands. So, like Ukraine, Japan has occupied territory being occupied by Russia. It's had all sorts of antagonism with China, all sorts of issues with its citizens being actually physically abducted and held for decades by North Korea. And yet Japan hasn't gotten into a military conflict with any of those countries. So it can be done. You can have peace. You can have pretty serious confrontations and not get into war. But there again, I mean, when you've got aggressive countries like Russia and so on, and frankly, like the United States itself has been, I mean, the invasion of Iraq was as much a war crime, if you ask me, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But, in the end of the day, just, America went home. When Russia invaded Afghanistan, they went home. And at some point, Russia has to pack up and leave Ukraine and take some lessons on this, and they have to go home as well. But we'll see what happens. Wingstar, did I hear about the aliens? Wingstar, I did hear about the aliens. I even briefly I watched the committee thing. It was up on my feed when I was checking out YouTube, so I watched it for about 10 minutes. I don't know. There was a big mega live documentary with whistleblowers in there's a show called UFO Cover Up, which was on network TV in America, and it was this live. They had whistleblowers, and they were talking about how America's been hiding gray aliens from Zeta Reticuli in Area 51 since the 1950s. And these people were saying they were describing the aliens. Apparently they like strawberry ice cream. It was a major, network TV, expose of America's involvement with aliens and so on. And this felt a little bit like that. It was people saying a whole lot of stuff, but no actual proof. And in fact, the most interesting question is, it was like, oh, I could tell you that, but I'd have to kill you. So I saw it. I don't really believe it. I mean, it would be wonderful, but I don't really believe all of that stuff. But I saw it and I thought it was interesting. But I was thinking, just like when I look at LK99, I think, oh, that's cold fusion again. When I saw those I saw those House hearings, it felt very much like a UFO cover-up, the 2-hour documentary with the aliens from Zeta Reticuli that like ice cream. It's the same stuff. Yeah. Dan H, I don't know how I missed the Mainichi story a few months ago. Dairy crisis hits Japan as farm bankruptcies see 14-year high. 14 bankruptcies of milk producers. I don't know how I missed that either. Please send that to me. Nerdy wants to believe. I want to believe too. I want to believe in LK99. I want to believe in aliens. I want to believe in it all. But, we need replication. We need verification. Trust. Believe but verify. I want to verify. I think that should be it. Wow, Dan, I don't know how I missed that. I'm not surprised, though. I mean, again, when they're running it like a North Korean, black market, it's pretty inevitable that they're not going to be good at business. But there we go. Sainted Sir, thank you. More cliches, please. I'm enjoying them. 15 minutes left. I don't know. I'm going to have to race through this. There have been a lot of theme parks opening in Japan. There's been the Nintendo theme park, the Universal Studios, the Harry Potter theme park, the Lego theme park. I'm not really into theme parks, honestly. I've been to Disneyland once in like 1999. However, this one, the Ghibli theme park, I mean, that looks pretty cool, actually. I must admit, I'd be kind of up for checking that out. That is apparently now open. I'm sure the crowds are going to be insane for a while, but that looks pretty cool. This is kind of funny. Nico Doga, I haven't seen this website for ages, but I do love how this is the original YouTube competitor. For a long time, this was bigger than YouTube in Japan, and I love the way that Japanese comment live across the screen. And there's something about Japanese, even when they're not using a lot of kanji, how, just seeing the reactions and stuff. Japanese is a very, sort of pictographic language. And so it's kind of fun where first you see people enjoying it, and then you see people talking about, hey, is this part of the show? Maybe they're having a bonfire. You can sort of see the mass confusion and reactions. There was a fireworks display that they haven't done them for a while, and it caused a massive grass fire. Not a good thing, but there we go. Just for a reminder that, neighbors, everybody needs good neighbors. Russia is occupying 4 islands of Japan, just immediately, like 3 kilometers from the coast of Hokkaido, and they decided to raise the flag on the old Japanese lighthouse on this island that they're occupying, just to wave it at Japan and show that they are, still they've still got this land. Basically farting in Japan's direction. Japan, remember, when Russia was getting a bit stroppy about this, Japan decided to have a HIMARS artillery practice right in front of those islands a few months ago, and Russia got very upset. They actually got a tugboat to pull like a barge with HIMARS trucks like back and forth in front of Japan, like to show their military strength in the Pacific after this. Compensating for something, I don't know, but Russia's still continuing. Ivan, you're drunk, go back to sleep. This is what they do. By the way, great to see you, Macaulay. Ohio, indeed, good to see you there in the chat. And Kato Krug, good to see you. To be fair, all 3 witnesses at the hearing were highly decorated, respected people. The middle guy was a high-level intelligence for sure, and I get that, but everything they were saying was more or less sort of, there was sort of hearsay and there was no proof associated. It's not saying that, it was interesting, and it was a step slightly above UFO cover-up, but there wasn't much information and there wasn't much evidence to us. There was a lot of hinting that stuff might be, people, most of it was based on hearsay as well, which means that even if they're credible, it means that somebody else told them a story that they decided to come and reveal to Congress. So again, I'd love for it to be true, but I'm not convinced. Continuing to scroll fast, and I was, look at that, I'm only 1 day back and we've got 10 minutes left and I've got 7 days to get through. So Japan's starting to do traffic enforcement for bicycles, so look out, we'll be forced to wear helmets soon. Meta's Threads, again, if we want to escape from X, from sort of Elon, the Elon verse, Meta, running towards Mark Zuckerberg, that doesn't feel right. But Threads is interesting, but honestly, it doesn't have any third-party integrations, it doesn't have any GIFs, it doesn't have any feed control, and it's not available on the web, so it's basically completely useless. But they've announced within the next couple of weeks it will at least be available on the web. So the quicker they get it into a state that it's useful, gives us at least an option for getting away from. Again, if I could hook up Threads to Flipboard, I still love Twitter because it's got, as you can see, I've got 123,000 posts and quite a large, about 13,000 followers on here. I think I'm still going to be on Twitter, but there again, it could be useful if they can make it actually work with Flipboard the way that Twitter used to. So I'm rooting for Meta, believe it or not, just hoping that they can get this to work. And also Japanese news covering that Threads, after the initial rise of everybody signing up and making sure no one stored their username, everyone stopped, including me, stopped using it. So the active users has already gone down by half on the site. So they've got to move quickly on that. A lot of news stories in NHK talking about how camping areas are getting now blocked off and closed down because there's been sort of an upswing of campers who go out camping and don't tidy up after themselves. They just go get lots of cheap camping equipment, which you can get really cheap from Don Quixote. You can get like a tent, whole barbecue set for like $50, and so people just find it's so hard to throw away the stuff, like a barbecue that's been used. You have to throw away as large rubbish, and there's nowhere to throw it away. You have to take it home, you have to go up to the convenience store, buy a sticker, put it outside at a certain time, a month in advance. So what do? They abandon it at the camping sites and just leave them covered in litter, and the result is that the local councils are there left to tidy it up, and they're getting fed up with that, so they are just shutting down these camping areas, so nobody can do these sort of picnics and camping anymore, which is a shame, but it's a thing that's happening. As I mentioned before, I think it's nuts that they have the national baseball tournament for high school students at this time of year when it's quite dangerous. So there you go. exercising. Oh yeah. Again, typical Japanese sort of politics. The sort of a personality. This guy Tamaki, who split away from the Constitutional Democratic Party, the biggest left-wing opposition party, to form his own party. It's kind of faded into obscurity. He's from the National Democratic Party. Thank heavens it's not National Socialist. He's announced that he is considering multiple new party names to reinvigorate the party for the next election. Personally, I would prefer a manifesto full of ideas and policies and ideas for running the country better. But sure, a whole list of exciting party names. I mean, that's about as much as we've learned to expect here. So yeah. Oh, another big thing: the UN Human Rights Representative for Business and Human Rights is doing a specific investigation into the Johnny Kitagawa Johnnies, the largest sort of boy and men's idol like talent office in Japan, with such bands as SMAP and so on. And already there are sort of stories and rumors out there for years that the head of that agency was sort of a huge pedophile who abused the boys, who parents would send off hoping that their kids would get to be like music idols, would send their kids off, take them out of school and put them into, the Johnny sort of training program. And apparently Johnny was just sexually abusing thousands, or at least within the organization, this was happening on this huge sort of a scale. The UN is saying that, they think this is one of the biggest cases of sort of uninvestigated sex abuse sort of ever. I'd ask if they've heard of the Vatican and the Catholic Church, but it sort of is on it's not quite on that scale, frankly, but it's one company, but the scale is horrific. The information about this is out there. The weeklies, the victims have sort of been speaking about this, and they've all been suppressed mainly by mainstream media, including when Johnny said that they didn't want an artist to be on TV and when they wanted to have someone expelled from the entertainment industry. NHK itself was complicit in complying with that sort of pressure which led to silence of victims. And that's rightly being called out. That the mass media, law enforcement, was complicit in supporting this massive, talent agency. And I think that does need to be sorted out. The fact that they waited, as always, with all these cases, not just in Japan, but overseas, they waited till the person died to bring it out. Is kind of ridiculous to be looking at this posthumously, but there is a lot to still look at. Fact is that those companies that were complicit in covering up and basically enabling the child abuse are still there. They should definitely be investigated in that regard. The Ministry of Labor. So basically, I've talked a lot about the apprentice trainee worker scheme to Japan, and how it's been used just basically as a way for companies that can't, that can't find people to, work in their sort of cheap farm and cheap factory jobs. They've got this scheme, of course, to encourage people from developing countries in Asia, from Vietnam, from Indonesia, from Philippines, to come to Japan and learn, be taught Japanese skills under apprenticeships in Japan to take back to their home countries to promote development. Of course, what's happening is these people are being used as laborers, and often while being paid far below the legal minimum wages in Japan. They're often actually having their passports taken away. They're not being paid at all, and being held in situations close to modern sort of slavery conditions, and all sorts of incidents resulting from that, including murders of employers and all sorts of stuff. And all of this, it's always been the actual victims of this who are the ones who have been the focus of police and regulatory Ministry of Justice attention, not the actual employers who are abusing the workers. So the Ministry of Labor decided, well, why don't we look at 9,829 locations that are employing apprentice trainee visas and just check that they're following employment rules and treating the workers properly. And in that survey of 9,829 locations, they found 7,200 violations of labor law, which means that either abusive labor law is widespread in places that are hiring. It's a very high hit rate, or there's one extremely, extremely bad place somewhere. It's one of the two. Who knows? But Slake Manson, thanks for coming. Thanks for liking. Hang around. Stay in the comments. We've only got 5 minutes left. I keep saying I'm going to go into speed mode. And that doesn't happen. I'm still one day back. Wow. SoftBank doing LLMs. I'm still waiting for multi-track audio so that I can dub myself in Japanese on these videos, which I would like to do. apparently, Japan's very upset that one of its Japanese currency diplomats, apparently a fake currency diplomat, paid $8 for a verified account, and is spreading false information about Japanese currency, which the government said, please, Elon, shut them down. I'm sure Elon was like, well, he paid his $8. My hands are tied. Web interface on Threads, government's shutting down Premium Fridays, which I forgot actually ever existed. Oh yeah, there was a great corruption case this week. There was a lawmaker from the LDP called Akimoto, who was found where he apparently he approached the Japan Wind Energy Association and said, hey, if you want some help with lobbying and government or whatever, I need to buy some new racehorses, so I could use $300,000. Can you please just, and apparently they paid him $100,000, and then he directed that they pay $200,000 to the horse broker that he was using that bought him 7 racehorses. And so he's fortunately for the LDP, who's had multiple cases of corrupt politicians receiving bribes, the LDP has successfully addressed the problem by asking him to resign from the party. So now he resigned 2 days ago, and immediately on the same day, all the news headlines switched to former LDP member. yeah, good one, LDP. You fixed that problem. Also, when I saw this, and I heard that, okay, so there's this guy, Akimoto, a politician from the LDP, charged with bribery. I'm like, haven't I heard this before? And yes, I have. In 2021, a different LDP government parliamentarian, also called Akimoto. I tried to find out if he's related, and it doesn't seem that he is. He's just got the same name, and he's in the same party in government. He went to jail for accepting bribes from Chinese casino companies, lobbying to get a casino set up in Tokyo, which fell through. So, if you're an Akimoto, and he, of course, is also now former LDP and in jail, but, you gotta say, it keeps happening in the same place. I mean, yeah, especially if there's anyone else called Akimoto, I think they should just start investigating. Maybe they should just resign from the party now. Maybe that would be a good strategy for the LDP. So yes, I summarize this. LDP has a problem with another corrupt lawmaker from its party breaking the law. LDP fixes the problem because they left the party. So there you go. Ain't no party like an LDP party. This was Gaiji Mummy, that's right, talking about the Katanga infanticide. I posted the links for it. It was horrible. I described it earlier, but that's a thing. Some misconceptions about air conditioning in Japan. I myself always thought that if you have the air conditioner on low and you set the temperature high, that uses less, electricity. But Daikin sort of has said that, yeah, that's a misconception. If you actually have it so that it's basically, the fan doesn't use as much electricity as the heat pump. So if you have the temperature set, if you have the heat pump set weak, so if you have the fan set weak, that means that the heat pump has to keep turning on to keep heating up the room. Whereas if you put it on a stronger heat, it'll actually mean you use the heat pump less. If you stick it on the fan on stronger. So it's things like that. It's actually having the fan on stronger can actually result in using less electricity. Another thing is that if you leave the room for less than half an hour, it actually will cause the heat pump to run less and save more electricity if you just leave it running than it would if you turn it off and let the room get hot again and then come back later and turn on the aircon again. So apparently, they're talking about like 2/3 of people in Japan believe when asked about these questions that you save electricity by keeping the fan speed low and by turning it off when you go in and out of the room. But apparently not true, which I didn't know myself. So there you go. YouTube Premium, yeah, I'm still paying for it. Chris Israel Baker, who loves to post basically poo-pooing most things that I say on Twitter, but he actually has he's actually an interesting person. I'd actually love to meet him. And he's been following the cybersecurity disaster that is Fujitsu's involvement in the Japanese government. And there's another case this week of the government losing 5,000 pieces of personal information. So that was a thing. Here's where there was a different Akimoto. Otani doing great as usual. We're up on time, so I'm going to race through. I do like this. If this person was knocked out by a falling cat and then was sort of a dog wearing shoes, fought to save the man's honor, it's a story that would be hard to tell at work. But there you go. Why is the dog wearing shoes? Why did the cat fall on the man? How did the man get knocked out by the cat? And why is the dog with shoes like trying to get revenge on it? I don't know. There's a lot happening in this video. It's a very good video. I watched this on Apple TV. Calls. It's just audio. The episode with Pedro Pascal is excellent. Like they're all short. It's audio and it's excellent. It's an original concept that I very much enjoyed. So if you get Apple TV, go watch that. Kaiji Mummy puts awesome animations. And I'm just going to go super fast through what's left here. But yeah, it's been a busy week as usual. And I got 3 days in this week. So that is a thing. We're actually up on the 100th anniversary this year of the Great Kanto earthquake, which resulted in both a huge massacre of Koreans as well as other sort of people. There were apparently people who spoke with local dialects in Tokyo who it was thought were foreigners, and they were massacred. And some people basically all ran off to Brazil as a result. Brazil's community as a result, basically, of refugees from the Great Tokyo earthquake. Barbie, Barbenheimer. I forgot to talk about Barbie. I'm going to talk about Barbie last. I don't care at all about Barbie. I mean, apart from the fact that the Barbie account promoting the Barbenheimer meme with Barbie going, yay, in front of a nuclear bomb explosion, being in bad taste. And it's really, honestly, not, I mean, like, why would you do that? It's not so much, Japan wasn't like, oh, this is America and Barbie celebrating the nuking of us. It wasn't quite taken like that. It was just pointed out what extreme bad taste it was. I mean, I kind of try to put it in context myself. It's like instead of Barbenheimer, it's like having Barbara's List. Could you have Barbie going like this in front of the gas chambers? No, that wouldn't work. Well, to some people, atomic bomb explosions have a parallel. And, should you really be doing this in front of a mass murder tool at all? As exciting as A-bombs are. So kind of bad taste. But honestly, the whole way that this whole like marketing thing went with, I mean, Barbie, I'm not interested in watching at all. I mean, great. If you want to go watch it, go enjoy it. And Oppenheimer would be interesting maybe if there's nothing else on Netflix, like the guy from Peaky Blinders doing, Oppenheimer, fine. I don't want to go to a movie theater to watch a movie about that guy. I mean, like two things that I have no interest whatsoever in watching. It's huge kudos to how the marketing machine, which spent $150 million in making me even say the word at the moment, it's the result of this huge marketing machine and how it swept through social media and how everybody got wrapped up and wanted to participate and everybody talking about Barbie. Barbie sucks. I mean, again, if you like it, congratulations, go watch it. But why would anyone go to a movie to watch a Barbie movie? And even the Oppenheimer thing, like, no. And it was in ridiculously bad. And again, that's what they're trying to do. It's in bad taste. Not particularly offensive directly to Japanese, but Japanese people saying it lends some weight, given that it's the context of, again, in the same way that, if they were doing Barbara's List, probably having Jewish people say, yeah, you shouldn't really do that, would probably carry a little bit of bonus weight, like Japanese doing it in front of nuclear explosions does. But that is a thing. Sometimes I do tweets that I like. I didn't even think anything about this. I have no particular opinion on this. There's apparently a very, very hard English test that middle school students do, and apparently more than half of the students who took this particular very difficult English speaking test got 0% on it. Like, they just didn't know what to do. It's a story literally about the difference between plastic bags in New Zealand and Japan, and they were asked to comment, and more than half of kids went, ooh. But of course, most people just read the headline and started talking about how English teachers suck and Japan's finished and why don't they speak our language, and this is American imperialism making us want to speak that. It turned into this huge thing. I literally think nothing about this, and I just retweeted the article, just literally the title. I didn't even put a comment on it, and it was like the most retweeted and commented thing. I'm getting pinged every minute with people being angry at this tweet and commenting like, oh, shut up. I want to see other notifications. I don't care about this. But yeah, I get the most reaction. It's always the case. You always get the most reaction, the most views to things that you don't care about, like Barbie. So there we go. I'm well over time, so I'm going to cut it off there. Hopefully Victor's going to be back in Japan, and we might do a 2.5 hours next week. We'll see how things are looking. Again, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, stay. Am I talking about Class Barbie? I might as well be, right? If we put another shrimp on the Barbie. Have a good week, everybody. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, stay cool. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, get warm. And wherever you are, don't watch Barbie. Or watch it. Who cares, honestly? yeah, have a good week, everybody. Remember, you can follow me on X because I'm from Gen X, and I drink Mountain Dew and skateboard, and I'm from the generation that cannot be defined. That's defined as Generation X. So anyway, thanks for keeping me company. Have a good week, everybody. I'll be back here same time next week. I've got nowhere else to go, and peace. Boom. See you later. Remember to like if you liked, by the way. I do appreciate that. See you later. Any stream.